Okay, Kim, we're going to go ahead and do a quick analysis of your swing, before and after swings from the golf school the other day. Picture on your left is before any instruction was given, and picture on the right side of the screen is after instruction. So the first thing I want you to take a look at is sort of the changes to your setup. To get yourself in a really good position to be able to hit the ball solidly and generate power. Setup is one of the key things that we had to work on with you. I've drawn a yellow box that starts down around your ankles and extends up toward the top of your head. And what that box kind of shows is where your weight is centered and where your body mass is centered. If you'll notice the picture on the left, the majority of your body weight is either confined within that circle or even partially outside the right part, the left, excuse me, if you're facing the screen, left portion of the square, your right shoulder, your right thigh, your right shin, all the way down. That shows that you have a predominant amount of your weight either centered or even on your back foot, which you now know is not conducive to hitting the golf ball before the ground. The picture on your right shows a quite drastic different setup position. A little bit wider stance. Keys here are your feet are flared out. Once again, we talked about why flaring those feet out is super important to unlocking sort of your linear range of motion and allowing you to turn easier. You'll also notice that you have most of your weight inside of that box, and some of it even out on the right side of that box, which would indicate you have more of your weight forward. Now, I like to see slightly more weight forward than what you have here, especially for players learning this pattern in the beginning. I would say that you're probably maybe 55% of your weight left, and in the beginning I'd like to see you more 60-65%. So that's just something for you to continue to work on here, and what you're going to do is just slide that tailbone just slightly a little bit more toward the target in this fashion here. Arms are hanging down beautifully. You're starting out with a nice amount of forward shaft lean, which once again we talked about the reasons why we're trying to get back to a position at impact with a nice forward leaning shaft in order to be able to hit the golf ball with compression, as well as strike the golf ball before the ground. I'm now going to play each of these swings for you through one time so you can kind of see the difference in the two motions here. Swing on the left, we're sliding our hips away from the ball, really shifting a lot of that weight into our trail leg and the backswing, which once again gives us low point control issues. Swing on your right, you do a little bit better job, but you're still sort of shifting your weight to your right side a little bit, but you're in the right direction. You're working on the right things. All right, let's go back and take a look at a couple of key positions. So if I take you to sort of the top of your backswing here, both frames, one of the things that was a point of emphasis for us was, number one, we talked first and foremost, in our backswing, we talked about going left shoulder down, right knee straightening, left knee flexing, really feeling like we're making a centered pivot. If we're setting up with 60% of our weight forward at address at the top of our backswing, we still have got 60% of our weight there. Clearly, we still have some room to go in terms of you maintaining your low point, your weight forward. And we also talked about the left arm radius and how important it was to maintain a straight left arm radius, because as you now know, the bending and flexing of that left arm is another way that we can skew the low point of our golf swing. Not to mention, being a tremendous power leak in our golf swing. So you made a nice improvement there in terms of maintaining a straighter left arm. I would still like to see it slightly more straighter. Ken, as we talk further about the importance of you keeping your weight left and how to do that, I kind of want to recap those stages for you. We talked about as you put the club into motion, you're going to feel as though your left shoulder works down, it turns down, your left arm works in, while your right knee is straightening and your left knee is flexing. We talked significantly about how the upper torso needs to side bend or side tilt while your shoulders turn. So I've placed a video of Jamie Lovemark, PGA Tour player, on the left here, who I feel like has probably the best side tilt in all of golf. So as I start his video here, I want you to notice the change in flexion in his knees. You can clearly see his right knee is straightening, his left knee is flexing, and he is side bending in his upper torso. I could draw pretty much a straight line down his back, down his left leg here. Now this player has a vertical spine. He's in full lumbar extension at the top of his backswing. He's turned his shoulders perfectly in a circle, and his low point has not moved. It has stayed forward. And you'll notice because he has straightened his right knee and his left knee has increased in flexion, that his hips are now turning on a slanted angle. And you can see that here. That is another indicator that his weight is forward, and his low point has remained in front of the golf ball. Compare your swing to his. Where he is at is where we're trying to go with you. I just want to make sure that you're very clear about how to do that, and we continue to work on the correct things going forward. So for you, it's going to be straight left arm, right knee straightening, left knee flexing, feeling a side bend or side tilt in the top of the backswing, and when you get to the top, you should feel full lumbar extension. I want to take the time to touch on one very important aspect of your golf swing. Looking at the video on the left, even though you are shifting your weight, into your right side and moving your low point back, you have a general understanding that your hips have to slide back forward, and you have to return that weight into your left leg. As we talked about, getting 85 to 90% of that weight back on your left-footed impact. So you can see, even though you dramatically shift your weight back, you do a somewhat decent job of getting your weight back to the left side as an indication of how you've crossed over that red line that I've drawn on the screen as you get into impact. Did a much better job after the instruction here, because you can really see you're pushing your hips forward and you're crossing that line even more. The line is getting almost to your zipper level here. But if we compare these two impact positions, you can see that we've made some slight changes to it. We're not where we want to be yet, but the picture on the left, the weight is not quite as far forward, and the handle of the golf club is back. I mean, it's actually leaning backwards and sort of in this direction here. And that as well as I do, that's no good. There's no compression coming from there, and you're actually adding loft to the face of the golf club. The face is working sort of up and under the golf ball there. We're just going to kind of hit high spinning, weak iron shots like that with no compression. A little bit of improvement on the right. I would say the shaft is now more in a neutral position. We're probably getting close to the true loft of the golf club. But we need to get a little bit more flat left wrist, a little more right arm flying wedge. And remember, the flying wedge was the angle that's formed between this angle here between the right arm and the shaft. The more right arm flying wedge we have, the more forward shaft fling we have, the more compression we're going to have on the golf ball. And it's also going to allow us to hit out at the golf ball for a longer period of time, producing more rightward path. And you want to play a draw, so the rightward path component is essential for producing that ball flight. Now, Ken, as we worked further and further through the school, you continued to improve, and you continued to understand the lower body action and even demonstrate it better and better and better. You started swaying less and less off the ball, and you started understanding how to push your hips forward even more and maintain that flat left wrist and flying wedge. I was particularly impressed when we got to your driver, how you were able to make those changes. So here's a driver swing toward the end of the school that I was very, very proud of. If you'll notice, we put the club into motion, right knee straightening, much better here. Much less shifting, swaying away from the golf ball, much more centered pivot here, and a much straighter left arm. Still a little bit of bend here, and I understand that it's not going to change overnight, but something we're going to continue to work on. But watch how beautifully your hips push back forward. Weight gets back onto our, fully onto our left side. We get into that 80% range at impact, and you're sort of standing up and jumping tucking your tail through the shot here. And when we get to impact, it's just so impressive with the driver here. Beautiful flat left wrist. Arms are extended. This is why you were hitting all those tight high draws with your driver here. This impact condition with weight on the left side, arms dead straight, and flying wedge. Now you remember how in the beginning you were hitting the ball straight up in the air. You were launching your driver at like 21 degrees according to TrackMan. You're spinning it up in the 4,000 and 5,000 RPM range. Well, the reason was because you were introducing so much dynamic loft. You didn't have a forward handle lean at the beginning. Your handle was actually, you were flipping at the bottom, and your handle was actually leaning backwards. Toward the end, when that ball flight came down and you were hitting all those drivers, 240, 50, 60 yards, it's because you were in this impact condition right here. Flat left wrist, right arm flying wedge intact, hips pushed forward, and you were actually hitting up on your driver about 1.5 degrees here. So awesome changes here. I just thought you'd want to see that driver swing, but awesome job, really hitting a nice job here. Okay, Ken, I want to take a look at your swing down the line really quickly, and I'm going to play both swings for you so you can just kind of see the motion. Now, while looking at your swing down the line, I noticed something about your swing, and it's the biggest timing mechanism in your swing. In the backswing, the amount that you rotate your left forearm in this direction here, the amount of rotation you have actually determines what plane the shaft will be on at the top of your backswing. You are excessively rotating your left forearm, which is putting the club in a little bit of a laid off position, and it's getting the club face open the top of your swing. As you start down, you'll notice that the club face is wide open because the left forearm is not re-rotating in this direction. Because it's not re-rotating, your club face is wide open at the top. If I put it from right here, if I draw a line on the face of your club, it looks like that. Where at this point it should be a little more vertical. Vertical would be square to the target line. Where it's at now is wide open, and it becomes more evident as you get down closer toward impact. Here it started to square a little bit, but the rate it has to shut rapidly through the hit and roll over is where your inconsistencies in your ball striking come from. We can leave the face open slightly, which you were doing. TrackMan was showing the face 6-7 degrees open, and then other times the face would be slammed shut. Okay, so to correct the amount that the face is having to open and close, we want to work on this loading of what we call the number 3 power accumulator, which is the rotation of this left forearm. We need to work on unloading it a little bit sooner in the downswing so that when we get to, say this position right here, the club face is in a much more square position. Ken, for comparison, I've placed a video of Robert Rock, a European PGA Tour player, on the screen to the left, so you can sort of see his club face position and how it changes as he gets closer to impact. So if I draw sort of a line on his club face here, you'll notice at this position, it's almost vertical here, whereas yours is a little bit laid back. And as we move forward, You can see yours is still in the vertical position here. And then it starts to trying to square down here. Notice how in this position his has rotated less than yours, and yours is more vertical. That indicates the rate with which yours is shutting through impact is much higher than Robert's. And that's one of the things that we'll need to work on with you in terms of your ball striking, for you to be more consistent with your ball flight. And like I said, that's directly related to the amount that this left forearm is actually rotating on the takeaway in this direction. And I know Robert doesn't have, he has a shirt on, but you can still see where the club passes through in the backswing. The handle of his club sort of moves through his right forearm in this matter. His shaft is here, whereas because yours has over-rotated, your shaft is sort of laid in a laid-off position. Anyways, that's just one thing that I noticed toward the end of the golf school we didn't really have a chance to get into, and I noticed it even more when I was looking at your videos. But hope this helped you. Hope you enjoyed the golf school and you made some amazing changes to your swing, and look forward to talking to you soon.